Future Ventures podcast on scaling with clarity. Today's guest is Craig Taggart, venture partner at Qubits Venture, where he focuses on strategic investments, family offices, and capital markets. Craig has worked across venture capital, financing, go-to-market strategy, and business growth, helping technology and healthcare founders translate their expertise into scalable companies. At Qubits Ventures, his work sits at the frontier of quantum systems, AI native platforms, and next generation computing infrastructure where scientific breakthroughs must ultimately become commercially viable businesses. Craig, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Maxim. I appreciate you having me. We have a
I
little
am,
blue screen.
yeah, I'm super excited for the conversation today. Um, so, when I typically start with kind of a bit of a your story into venture, kind of like how did you come to do what you're doing currently?
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the time. So I'm going to be 51 this year. I came up through UBS, through investment banking and
Hmm.
wealth management in different time frames, but got access to deal flow, capital advisory, strategic growth, M&A,
Hmm.
tech companies, SaaS software. So I've really learned a lot back then. That was at San Francisco and LA, and I've been with a family office for about 5 years by the name of LIGO Partners, where we focus on venture-backed growth companies. So if you think about the Sequoias, the Andreessens, the Khosla Ventures, the main venture capital groups that like to invest in the best companies in the world, really. That's what they do, and they've got a great track record. So we help them with their Series A capital round financing. We've
Hmm.
done very, very well, and that's across technology and healthcare. And that has led me to Qubits Ventures. Qubits Ventures I've been with since about February of last year. And Qubits Ventures is the first US-based venture capital firm focused on quantum technologies. We've actually been around for 4 years, if you can believe that.
Okay.
Um, our investments in Fund One go back to 2022, and we focus on seed, post seed, Series A companies, and that's in quantum technologies, next gen compute, next gen AI applications, and then finally data center innovations or infrastructure. So that's
Hmm.
that's what we focus on. So
Amazing.
yeah. So we're really kind of at that critical inflection point. Last year we felt was really the year for quantum technologies. I'm happy to be involved with my GP and managing partner Nardo Manalotto, who's literally spoken all over the world, and people know him everywhere,
Hmm.
and he knows more than most on quantum technologies. Believe me. So
Yeah.
we really believe as a firm that we're at a very critical and inflection point for the entire future of compute,
Yeah.
uh, intelligence, and infrastructure. So we're really investing with that theme in mind, and love to get into it more in this conversation. So
Absolutely. So so just kind of taking your background from UBS to LIGO to Qubits now, you've advised and financed companies across, like as you said, like technology, healthcare, the two primary sectors. What changed in your thinking when you moved from kind of helping established businesses scale to investing in technologies whose market may not yet be fully defined or exist? Kind of like for those that don't know much about quantum, kind of like where does it sit currently? Like how close is this to being like commercialized?
yeah, I mean that's a great question. So one of the reasons I came aboard as a venture partner was because I felt that there was a change coming. There's a physical wall that's already here in traditional compute. So quantum computing, to your point, has been very much lab generated, right? It's been
Yeah.
very much R&D. It's been very much maybe someday. Will this ever happen? How do we make this commercialized? Can we get this to scale? What's the business use case? All these questions. What's happening now is, and maybe this had something to do with it, was if you remember December of last year, one of the comments came out around from the CEO of Google, Sundar Pichai, and obviously he has a vested interest in this because they put so much capital in R&D to come up with their Willow chip, as did other big tech companies, right? So, he said, his words, quantum technologies is where AI was 5 years ago. So he said that in December of last year. And what we're now seeing is that this year we've seen a significant shift from what I said previously to, okay, we have security concerns. We have power concerns. We have a physical wall in traditional compute. We don't have any other, we can't build any more data centers, right? We have banks at risk. We have securities issues at risk. We have the whole cryptocurrency at risk if we don't figure out this cryptography. So what you're seeing happen is you have companies that are now public companies such as IonQ, many others, and they are doing a tremendous amount in architecture, photonics, security, you name it. So it's really about being positioned the right way, and we think we've passed that point in the fact that we're seeing a tremendous amount of M&A coming from public companies. We're seeing, I think we just passed over $1 billion in revenue for privately held quantum computing companies. There's been over a 50% increase in startups in quantum-based companies. So, all the signs are there. And then I think the biggest sign was, if you go back to about a month ago, you saw the Department of Commerce, U.S. government, come in with a $2 billion investment under the CHIPS and Science Act, which basically funded quantum modalities, which is exactly what Qubits Ventures does, right? So that they invested in 9 different companies, both public and private: foundry, superconducting, trapped ion, photonics, everything. So what does that mean? Well, that means that the U.S. government, IBM, one of the companies we really like on the public side as well is Inflection, because that is a neutral atom architecture, which we are very involved in. But they basically said, look, quantum is here. We're a venture investor in quantum technologies. We're going to de-risk the sector with this investment from a capital standpoint. And this is something that we need to be invested in for national security and energy. Those are our 2 biggest concerns in this country right now, is national security and energy. So that's a big tailwind for us. And it speaks to kind of where we are in that process as far as capital markets are concerned. So hopefully that answers your question.
It does. Can you double click on national security and energy, and how is quantum technology being deployed in those instances?
Yeah, sure. So I'll talk about security, because I think that's what's driving the adoption. And the reason why that is because to my point is that if you think about, the security protocols around everything we know today, Bitcoin, Ethereum, banking system, securities industry, fintech, everything we have is on a certain security protocol. And what's happening is we're thinking now that by 2028, that they're all going to be at risk in some point. So what we're adopting now is there's this quantum revolution that is introducing 2, not 1, but 2 cryptographic security designs that will protect against future quantum threats. So that means PQC, which is post-quantum cryptography, and quantum key distribution. Now,
Mm-hmm.
what's being adopted quickly is PQC, because that is a new advanced cryptographic algorithm. And how it works is it basically is instead of relying on the difficulty of factoring, if you will, factoring large numbers like RSA, PQC uses mathematical problems that are incredibly complex for both classical
Mm-hmm.
and quantum architectures, right? So the most prominent family of cryptography, which involves finding the nearest point in a highly complex grid or numbers. That's what that is. So we're talking
Mm-hmm.
about protocols such as TLS, we're talking about SSH, VPNs, all of that. So we're thinking by 2028, that's going to be here. So that's why in July of 2026, everything we know about security, whether it's cybersecurity,
Mm-hmm.
uh, cryptography, you have to start moving in that direction for a more global standardized, like groups like NIST. NIST have finalized the first set of PQC standards, which we have to, right? I mean, these are digital
Yeah.
signatures that are now in industries that are actively migrating to these quantum resistant algorithms. So that's the first piece of security.
Mm-hmm.
The second piece is QKD, and that has to do with the laws of physics, right? So that's a hardware driven method. And believe me, I'll be the first one to say I'm a business guy. I've had to learn a lot since I
Mm-hmm.
joined Qubits Ventures regarding the technology and the physics behind quantum.
Yeah.
So trust me, I'm doing the best I can, but this is what I want to talk about because security is something that we think is really driving the adoption of
Yeah.
cryptocurrency of quantum. Because
Yeah.
what else is a bigger factor than security? Nothing,
Yeah.
right? So that's where and this has to do with hardware driven methods such as properties of light or photons, right? So now we're
Mm-hmm.
getting into the real physics side of it. So this is to secure a cryptographic key between two parties. That's what that is.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a comparison. There's a lot of comparisons between both PQC and QKD and how quickly they'll be adopted and
Yeah.
why. But that's the main. That's why I think adoption will start to create, and that's why I think you're starting
Yeah.
to see the adoption and transition to quantum. Just because it's not a want to, it's more of like we have to,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's kind of like if you remember, like, everybody is the year 2000, right? Everybody didn't
Yeah.
know what was going to happen in
Y2K.
1999, so they all waited to the fourth
Yeah.
quarter of 1999 because year 2000,
Let's go
the
through it
world's
over.
going to
Yeah.
change. It's the
I think
same.
that was invented by the consulting firms.
Yeah, all the consulting firms. Really. And they waited to the last two, and then what happened? Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
This is this is totally different than that. This is where everything is going to be vulnerable if you don't do something about it
Yeah.
yesterday. So, but that's
Makes
what
sense.
we learned.
I
And we have 3 portfolio companies that are based on that security protocols. So
makes sense.
one is American Binary, which is actually pretty interesting, actually. I can talk about that if you want, but
Well, what I'm trying to understand with these companies, are they working in a coordinated effort to establish the protocol, build up the infrastructure, or with the security component? Like, I mean, the most logical 2 industries that come to mind for me is the financial industry, and 2, on the energy side, specifically critical infrastructure protection, right? We have SIP acts both in Canada and the US, and NIST is kind of the standard. So
right.
where's the first adoption going to take place?
Where?
Yeah.
Well, I think it already has. I mean, I think
Okay.
I think when you talk about PQC specifically, I mean, we have a portco which I'll share. It's in Fund 1 by the name of
Mm-hmm.
American Binary. So American Binary does exactly what I just talked about. So American binary it's a hardened post-quantum compute or post-quantum cryptography. Sorry, it's been a long day. But they already meet, if you think about this. So we have the National Security Agency, NSA, right?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
this company already meets the NSA CNSA 2.0 standards, right? It already meets their standards as a privately held company. So the architecture protects against what I just said. So it protects against present and future cyber attacks, which what else, what is more dangerous than that? Not much right now, specifically with the war in Iran and all that stuff. So this is including this, what you'll start to hear, this harvest now, decrypt later. You're going to start to hear that. If you haven't heard it already, that's a big term in cryptography and security. So this is attacks involving really sensitive data. So, but I think it's already happening, specifically, around companies such as IBM, Global Foundries, Atom Computing, Inflection, Rigetti, obviously D-Wave, PSA Quantum, all these publicly traded companies on quantum, they're already adopting this internally. They have to, because it's so competitive. I mean, their first mover advantage into quantum technologies. Now they all have different modalities, but they have to be adopting the security in-house. So they would have already had to do that, just because their current cybersecurity threats would have already been, the company would have already been at risk.
So I mean, in this case, obviously the big enterprise have to start with this, or big companies. You talked about IBM. That's kind of the driver. How would this parlay translate into like middle market companies, lower market individuals? What do you think the roadmap would look like?
As far as
kind of like the quantum technology, the evolution, the adoption.
Well, I mean, these are all quantum companies already, right? So they're all. I mean, you talk about, and I'm just listing the companies that were invested by the government, because people who watch your podcast would know who they are. But each one, like Global Foundries, got $375 million. What do they do? Well, they're a multi-modality. They're an open foundry, so they support superconducting, right? Trapped ion, photonics, and silicon spin architecture. All the architectures, they're involved in that. So, and then IBM obviously got $1 billion, so they got half the money. And that's IBM has been around forever. So, but the other ones on the private side and the public side, the public markets reacted very positively to that, and now we're starting to see a lot more activity on the private market, saying, "Hey, we need to be involved in this. We need to be involved in the capital markets. We need to be looking at funds, because most people are not. They don't have investment teams or investment committees. Most don't. I mean, we talk to a lot of family offices and corporate venture capital, primarily because they're the most interested at this point. But most don't have at least large teams of people that really can understand different technologies within quantum, and that's across like, and I'm talking about like, you think about, the AI, software, hardware. You talk about imaging and sensing. You're talking about electronics. We have a company by the name of Probius that's in healthcare and bioanalytics and quantum. I mean, think about that for a second. So, AI, compute, again, defense, security, American binary. I mentioned that. Energy, infrastructure, big one. Pink Technologies. That's going to be a unicorn. So, so we're very involved in that, and we think that that the private companies are really starting to see some traction, and I think that will only continue as we move through 2026 and into 2027. I mean, we have 13 companies in Fund One, and I believe two of those companies will probably be acquired in Q3 of this year. So those are companies that we invested in probably at the seed or post-seed level, and they're probably going to be acquired by one of the larger privately held or publicly companies that I already mentioned. So you're starting to see, whenever you start to see that M&A activity in an industry, you know that they're trying to scale,
Everyone-
they're trying to
Yeah.
grow, trying to build in-house, and the faster
Yeah.
they can do that, the more powerful they become in the industry. And they know at this size that they obviously don't have the architecture or the teams to build certain types of quantum
Mhm.
teams internally. So what do? They acquire them, right? So that's what's starting to happen. So
Makes
but
sense.
yeah, there's a notable shift in strategy. And like, as a condition for receiving like these chips incentives, the U.S. government is taking. I mean, it's a non-controlling equity stake in these companies. I mean,
Yeah.
the UK followed that, Japan followed that. This marks a major shift toward a proactive industrial. This is a policy move.
Mhm.
It's not just capital. This is policy. This is part of Trump's administration. So high risk, deep tech, federal investments, and they're all in. So, and I do expect more capital to come into the space from that department. So,
And it makes sense. It makes sense. You mentioned that in Fund One there's 13 companies. I'm assuming in Fund Two you're currently deploying. How big are the funds? What is the check
yeah,
size?
sure. Yeah, I'd love to talk to you further about Fund Two. Fund Two is probably we're targeting 100 million in
Okay.
AUM. We have 3 companies invested thus far, and we have, I think we're up to, I want to say 10 companies warehouse now. So
Okay.
we don't have any shortage of deal flow. So that's good news. So one of the areas we like a lot of areas in quantum, but we have one company by the name of Sigaldry Technologies. Sigaldry Technologies is and one of the areas, one of the things about qubits that's interesting that your listeners would like is that we have access. We have access to deals that other funds are not going to have access to. Why?
Mhm.
Because my partner Nardo has been speaking on this and is a quantum expert across the world. So he's built relationships with a lot of companies that I've already mentioned. So he knows, Rigetti. He knows the guys behind D-Wave, Inflection, Atom Computing, some of these
Yeah.
public companies. He knows the guys on the boards, right? So Sigaldry Technologies, they held open position for us on the seed and Series A level.
Oh, nice.
And that is a company that is building quantum. I want to make sure I get this right because I look at a lot of companies. I just want to make sure I have this right before I move on here. So,
And spin on them.
yeah. So Sigaldry Technologies, this is an AI hardware play. We just invested in this.
Yeah.
And this is think about this if you can put your head around this, where this is going. So I mentioned at the top, future of computing, right? Quantum,
Mhm.
infrastructure, and intelligence. This company is developing quantum AI, quantum accelerated AI servers.
Mhm.
That's what they do. So that integrate multiple qubit modalities within a fault-tolerant architecture.
Mhm.
So they did a $139 million raise, the largest Series A raise in quantum in private markets. That was done in April, and we were able to be involved in that deal. So what does that mean? That means we're seeing not just deal flow, we're seeing the highest of quality of deals. I mean, Microsoft's invested in that, NVIDIA's invested in that. Very good lead investors in that deal. So, that's the type of manager I have. We're looking at architecture such as neutral atom companies. We think out of the 4 architectures, such as neutral atom, superconducting trapped ion, those types of architectures, we're seeing neutral atom foundational engineering, high powered optics. We're seeing that is the leader in architecture. Why is that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, everybody thinks of quantum computing as this big chandelier hanging from a ceiling that's massive, takes infrastructure, takes capital, all this build. Neutral atom technologies for architecture isn't that, and it operates at room temperature. It doesn't have to be at Kelvin or frozen temperatures.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very, very friendly to commercialization. It's very friendly to adaptability. It's very friendly to transitioning or pivoting to adoption curve, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, that architecture has to lead from somewhere, and we think that neutral atom is the one to do that, and we've seen that from the public markets with inflection. They got $100 million from the U.S. government, and they're
Mm-hmm.
really doing well on the public side. So, but yeah, that's my take on that.
Makes sense. Couple of questions there. I know that the new administration. I mean, it's not that new; it's coming on to 2 years, but there is a shift in policy in terms of like security independence and chip independence. Do you see more of this happening? I mean, there's at the moment it's very topical, right? OpenAI is pitching to the U.S. federal government for them to come in with 5% stake in the
Yeah.
company. Do you see more of this happening? What is your perspective on this?
I think you're speaking more to like the open AI and the Anthropics, right? As far as the government involvement in that. Yeah,
Just
I
in general, I mean,
definitely.
we saw the U.S. government take a stake in Intel. We're seeing now a pitch
Yeah,
from OpenAI. Kind of like,
right.
do you see more of the U.S. government playing a role in
Yeah, I
next
do.
frontier companies?
I do. I do think it's part of their policy shift. I do think it has to do with more national security. I think it has to do more with energy. I think having that industrial policy, I think, in place will open up investment to these types of companies that can really protect
Mhm.
the U.S. Right? I mean, we're the most powerful country in the world, and if anything, those are the two areas I keep talking about. But that's what's at most risk for us is
Yeah.
our energy policies and our security for financial. That's something that if you leave yourself, you cannot afford to leave yourself open for those areas at all.
Hmm.
And I think that's what you're seeing with Intel, which was surprising, by the way. Um, but yeah, I think that
400% growth since the government came in.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there were. I mean, Intel lost their way a long time ago, in my
Yeah.
view. I mean,
Yeah.
AMD, Nvidia, Taiwan Semiconductor. I mean, they crushed them in
Yeah.
earnings, product, everything. So I'm kind of surprised, but who knows? But they took a big stake in Intel, and obviously Intel's done very well ever since then. So,
Do you,
but anyway, yeah. So yeah, I don't think it's going to stop. I think it's in the best interest of the government. It's in the best interest of the country. It's in the best interest of policy. And I think politicians, I mean, they can always say, "Hey, I was part of the policy that invested in quantum technologies," and take all the credit they want for that decision. So,
s- 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 some loud voices say that the government shouldn't be in the business of picking winners and losers. Any
yeah,
kind of
yeah, exactly. I mean, but
yeah.
that's why you saw. I totally agree, but I think that's why you saw them do a diversified approach, right? They're like, okay, let's invest in quantum, but we're
Yeah.
going to be heavy in IBM, but the rest of you guys can. Here's 100 million, but
Yeah.
we're invested. So I think that's a diversified approach and modalities, which is it's basically a venture capital approach to the
Yeah.
industry,
Yeah.
which is
For
is
sure.
great. So.
Do you guys with Qubits invest in companies globally, or does the company have to be Delaware C corp, primarily
Yeah.
U.S., Canadian, North America? Doesn't matter where they
Yeah,
are.
that's a good thing. I mean, we're a great question. We invest globally,
Yeah.
100%. Like we have venture studio. We have venture studio in India, venture studio up in Seattle. So we're definitely involved in that. We believe in the ecosystem. that
Hmm.
allows companies to grow. But yeah, we invest globally and we talk to global capital. Like my partner Nardo Manaloto, he's been in the Philippines for a week, right? So
Hmm.
we're seeing a lot of interest from Southeast Asia. We've been on the phone with Singapore, family offices based in Singapore, Japan, um, places in the UK. US is a little slower to adopt. I have fortunately a lot of relationships with family offices, so we've had a lot of interest from family offices that have a deep tech focus.
Hmm.
But again, it's kind of that adoption curve, which is happening now. So it's a good time to be in the space.
Makes sense. Um, Notably, I didn't hear Israel as part of this. There's a lot of deep tech VC firms
There is,
there. Um, okay.
yeah. No, we're. It's funny you said that because I don't think there's a month that goes by that I don't see a company in deep tech from Israel.
Yeah.
The continued innovation and technology and brain trust that continues to come out of that country is nothing short of phenomenal.
Yep.
Just as far as what they're able to develop, they've been known for cybersecurity for years, but they just I don't know what the word is for it. I've never seen
Yep.
a country have so much trouble in the world, but yet it doesn't matter, and they
So,
just keep coming with the
yep.
best companies in the world. It's amazing. So yeah, we're slowly getting there. We're seeing some interest from UAE. We're seeing interest from Dubai. So yeah, Middle East, but until
Hmm.
that settles down, people are kind of okay, let's figure this out. But yeah, we're definitely seeing it from global scale.
Makes sense. Um,
Yeah.
just a curiosity question for founders that are listening. What must the quantum founder prove before you believe that they're ready for institutional capital?
Yeah,
Kind
great
of like,
question.
yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, one of the things I do is I look at a lot of deal flow, and one of the things we're looking for is what is your obviously proof of concept, but kind of that go to market strategy, product market fit,
Mhm.
what's your moat around the technology, what's your patent portfolio, is this coming out of a lab? Is this coming out of a university? I mean, is there a business here, or is this an idea, right? Because a
Yeah.
lot of these companies sit at the university level, they sit at the
Yeah.
R&D level, they sit at the lab level, and they never really get to commercialization. There's a reason, right? There's a
Mhm.
reason. There's PhDs are great, scientists are great, they're much smarter than I am, but they're not business people. They're not
Mhm.
CEOs. They don't know how to make a business happen. They don't know how to grow a business. So we look for a lot of different areas when it comes from an investment committee standpoint. But those are just a few things that are just red flags that if because 9 times out of 10 we've seen a company that is trying to do photonics, or we've seen a company that is trying to do hardware, or it could be a number of different things when it comes to sensing or imaging or
Mhm.
defense security. So you know why are you doing what you're doing? What's your mission? What
Yeah.
problem are you trying to solve, and how are you solving it? And there's a series of questions that we ask, and if they can't answer some questions, then we know that they're not ready. So
Mhm.
that's kind of how that goes. And then basically what we're looking at. Okay, we have a lot of we've I see a lot of companies that I'm referred that are you know raising capital, or have gotten or have received some sort of non-dilutive capital in some form, which always is interesting. But it's really about that go-to-market, product market fit. What's the moat around the technology? What problem are you trying to solve? Who's your leadership? Who's on your board? Where's the company originated? Um, is this something that can gain traction in the capital markets? Period.
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
and then from there, you need to get you know, um, some sort of high level lead investor on that pre-seed or seed round to really, bless the company, to say, hey, this is a technology that we've invested in, and here's the reasons why, and it's got to be different from what the market has seen. And venture capital is really good at vetting those out. So we do the best we can to put us in the right deals. And that's one of the things that's great about Qubits, is that we get shown deals, the best deals. So it really makes our job much easier, because we don't have to go through, hundreds and hundreds of deals to find one or two. And we still do that, because you never know what's coming down the path. But we have access to deals that most people are not going to see until the A round, the B round, or much further down the valuation chain. So,
I mean, you mentioned your co-GP Nardo as being a big force behind access to these deals. So visibility, obviously super important. How do you scout for these deals? I mean, obviously, if people are coming, I'm 100% sure that you're not just passively relying on people to come to you. So
no.
what other things are you doing to find the right deals?
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of this has, again, we have a lot of relationships with Caltech, Berkeley, USC, UCLA. So, and overseas, and with, my partner has a lot of relationship with CEOs that he's been following for 2, 3, 4 years. Right. So we want to see how those companies are developing, how they're growing. Are they ready for a seed investment? Are they ready for an A investment? Are they ready for a lead or, a passive co-investment? So, and our check size is usually, I mean, we're going to be probably 100 million AUM. So you can kind of do the math on, we're probably going to do about 35 companies. So 100 million divided by 35, you can kind of do the check size on that. So, we're always active. I mean, I can tell you, I probably get emailed 5 deals a week, right? Because I post a lot on LinkedIn on quantum technologies quite a bit. Like I just posted on PitchBook. PitchBook came out with a quantum technologies write up, and I just did my own comments and always now it's funny. Like a year ago, I put a post on LinkedIn. I get 5 or 10 likes, a couple comments, like that. Now it's over 100, right?
Wow.
So now I get at least over 75 people liking my stuff, and they comment on it because they know who I am. They know what I write about. They've seen a podcast or whatever. But so I get emailed deals a lot now just to take a look. Hey, we're raising a seed round on this technology. There's $3 million on a $10 million pre, and we want to do a safe, or we want to do a growth, or we want to do a node, or whatever the structure is. So that's what I see. But no, it's I don't have to go look for them. But we kind of have both, where I know enough companies now that we're kind of looking at already. And with my partner Nardo, we have plenty to look at. So, but it's always interesting to see what's coming down the pipeline. So
yeah, Craig, you mentioned the universities. I'm curious, and I'm assuming that you're keeping an eye in terms of what's coming out of there. But like, what do you think is the hardest, I guess, barriers to transition technology from the lab to commercialization, or just taking it out of the lab and pursuing it there?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you said that, because we just did a quantum day. We presented at Quantum Day in Caltech back in April, and it was funny because 2 weeks before that, a little brief story. 2 weeks before that, there was news that came out that PhDs, guys smarter than I am, that are sitting in a lab, that came out and said from a theoretical standpoint, they proved that you didn't need 100,000 or 500,000 or 1 million qubits to get through error correction. They're trying to prove error correction, right? To get to functionality. So they basically said, we came out in theory and said it only takes between 10,000 and 20,000 qubits. not 100,000, 500,000 in an error correction type of scenario. So, amazing brain trust there. But it's like kind of like what I said in the previous question is it's like, there's a lot of companies that have been sitting in R&D. There's a lot of companies that have been, a lot of concepts. I wouldn't say companies. I should say concepts or ideas that are in labs or R&D that say, oh, wait, quantum technologies is now commercialization. Now we should try to build a business around it. Okay, well, that's what everybody else is thinking too, right? And that's great, but why did it stay in the lab so long? And sometimes why did these ideas or concepts stay in the lab? And some of them should stay in the lab and not try to be a business. The bottom line. So, but it's all about the strategy. It's all about, like I said before, it's all about what problem are you solving that's not already solved. And quantum is such a huge space, and it's still nascent from an investment standpoint that you're going to have this rush to the door. You're going to have this, let's see if we can get to the private markets. Let's see if we can get acquired. Let's see if we can do IPO, all this stuff. But in reality, they're just not ready. They're simply not ready. They don't have a VC with them. They don't know how to put together a deck. They don't have a CEO who's taken a company through the private markets. So to get one of these companies through the capital markets, you typically have to have a CEO or a team that actually has done it before. It's a good idea, right? Rather than say, "Oh, what can you do it ourselves?" Like
figure it out.
It works. So it's interesting to see what people think, and they come up to this aha moment, like, "Oh, wait, that's why it's hard," type of thing. So it's always interesting to see that. So.
On the capital side, you said that the like your LPs are primarily family offices and corporate venture capital firms.
Right.
I'm curious as to why those two groups, are they more patient? Kind of like, why family offices? Like what? Like Still there?
Being a family office, we co-invest together on deals. That's just how it works. So, family offices are good because, number one, family offices weren't really a big deal 10 years ago. They weren't. People weren't talking about them. Now, they're probably operating more like private equity, where there's trillions of dollars in capital in family offices. And those are basically born. There can be single family or multifamily offices typically, right? So, and they're generally born out of families that have had success with a business or multiple businesses. Some of them are very real estate focused. They've built a lot of wealth through that. So it's usually a real estate, or they've sold a business or a company through one of the first generation or second generation. So, what it is they usually have some sort of, thesis or areas that they're good at, or they come from that area, sector. So they like to invest in what they come from, which is great. And then they're very passive. So they don't need a board seat. And they usually have a much quicker due diligence process. So if you're talking to like a corporate venture capital or later stage private equity or whatever, it's usually much longer, like months, right? So they have to go through serious committee and all this stuff. Family offices, I've seen a family office make a decision in 48 hours, right?
Wow.
So if they like a deal, if they like you, if they met with a CEO, they've been through the data room, for that's rare, but it can be as much as it can be like a week or two, right? So that's really good for companies that need to raise capital rather quickly to stay capitalized or to move towards better capitalization for their structure. And plus they're very patient capital. So if they invest in something, like, we're along for the ride. We want to make sure that our return is there, and we like what you're doing. We want to be involved. We don't know anything like, quantum technologies. We like the space. We have a deep tech focus. but we don't have anybody in quantum technologies. Let's invest in a fund.
Yeah.
There you go. So that's why a lot of them are looking at us, starting to look at us. And then corporate venture capital is this, it's a whole other entity, but you start talking about, companies such as, Nissan, Toyota, Caterpillar, Microsoft, Nvidia, Google, all these different companies have their own venture departments. Why?
Mhm.
Well,
Mhm.
they have so much capital on their balance sheet that they have to invest it in
Yeah.
areas of technology that they think will generate a nice multiple or exit. So,
Yeah.
so again, some of those companies may or may not have talent in or skill in quantum
Mhm.
technologies, and they want to get access to that. They want to be
Mhm.
involved in that, especially when it's early stage, because that only helps their profile in not only the quantum industry, like, oh, we're Toyota, we're Caterpillar, we're Google, we're whoever, but we invested in Sigaldry Technologies with Qubits Ventures. Here's why. So now
Mhm.
they can say to their board, well, we're generating returns from quantum technologies, quantum compute, intelligence.
Yeah.
We're ahead of our competitors. We're generating returns in that industry, and that helps their teams internally learn more about it, right?
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
so it's a win-win situation for them, and it's a win-win situation for us because we can bring value add to them in an area that they don't have enough, you know,
Expertise. Yeah.
background to really make an investment decision, which is why they rely on us to do our work. So,
How do you um how do you view the relationship between quantum and AI? And you talked about the infrastructure layer. I mean, obviously, at the moment there's more demand than there's supply. Um, Quantum provides higher speeds, higher outputs. Kind of like I'm just trying to get your perspective on that interrelationship.
sure, great question. So I think when it comes to AI, I think I don't know about you, but I'm using Gemini and Claude every day. I mean,
Hmm.
that's what I do. I don't think I'm alone in that. I think most people, especially in business, are using that just because it's more efficient. So just from an application layer, I think when you start to look at what AI is, how it's changing the landscape of literally everything we know in corporate America, and one of the reasons why automation is here to stay. I think when you have that type of influence over small business, middle market, large corporations, that's great. But I think when you talk about quantum, now you're talking about, okay, now you have an engineering side
Hmm.
of quantum, whether it's compute, whether it's sensing, whether it's defense. There's an engineering behind these companies and what problems they're solving, right? So if you start to factor that side in of what we're building at Qubits Ventures, now you push that against what AI already is, and what happens? Now they push each other
Hmm.
to grow that much faster. So I think, and it's funny you asked that because I got that question when I was on a panel at USC in October of last year, and they said, "What do you think is happening? Do you think AI is going to push quantum adoption, or do you think quantum is going to push AI adoption?" And I think it's both. I think both of them
Hmm.
are pushing each other because I think
Hmm.
once people see like, okay, there's AI here, but
Yeah.
how do I apply it? How do I use this? Well, if you start looking at AI and you put AI adoption into one of our companies on the engineering side, such as American Binary, which is solving defense and security issues,
Yeah.
what you have, right? And then you put that company engineering problem solving with AI, you start to see this multiplier effect where I think they continue to grow each other and they speed up compute, you know, um, by I guess the word is bilaterally. I don't know,
Hmm.
but that's what I think is happening, and I think that's what's fueling the adoption because I think they both kind of need each other
Yeah.
in a way to really solve the problems that we're facing, whether it's defense, whether it's energy, whether it's supply chain. you know, biology and healthcare. One of the
Mhm.
one of the earliest adoptions of that we're seeing is a company by the name of Probius, which is a bioanalytical. This is the first area. So biology and healthcare is already being affected
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
quantum because it's so, if you think about the adoption curve for biotech companies being adopted or passed through the FDA, 10 years to get a
Yeah.
company through that, right? So we have a company in our portco by the name of Probius, and it's moving. Think about this: it's moving bioanalysis from a reagenic centric to a data centric approach. What does that
Yeah.
mean? It's a bioanalytical platform that captures rich
Yeah.
data driven quantum data, integrates it directly into AI workflows.
Yeah.
Right. So it's exactly what I just said.
Yeah.
Quantum moving into AI, influencing AI, pushing it faster, but it enables faster diagnostics, decentralization processing, and it really accelerates insights for healthcare and drug development. So what do you think that's going to do for like the world, right?
Oh, it's. I mean,
It's
what it's
tremendous,
AI? What it's for sure AI? What it's quantum?
right?
My biggest observation there is that it allows us to go from one to many approach to one. Everything will become personalized. Like, I mean, we do a fair bit of work around biotechnology, and so now you can use AI instead of relying on one biomarker. You can use a series of biomarkers and
Yeah.
aggregate them together to determine kind of like, well, what happens if this, then what? So yeah, I mean, it's pretty exciting, kind of like
No, it's so
how AI. I mean,
yeah.
you have Mark Zuckerberg and Priscilla Chan, like they're focusing on kind of like that foundation, like how do we use AI in terms of advancing
Yeah.
healthcare? Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah. No, I think. I mean, I'm not. To be honest with you, I've never been a big Zuckerberg fan, but what he's doing in healthcare, it's great. I mean, it's
yeah.
really great. So I just wanted to share that with you to your question about how quantum is really
Hmm.
directly into AI workflows. I mean, it's happening now, and they're raising a Series A round that I'm helping
Yeah.
out with. So, but that company is going to change healthcare. Already
Yeah.
is. So, yeah.
Do you so question? Do you see more data centers being built, more need for compute? Do you see these staying terrestrial? Do you see these moving to space? Kind of like what do the next 3 to 5, 7 years look like?
Yeah, I'm smiling because I literally just had this conversation with a friend of mine at
Yeah,
lunch like 4 hours ago, 5 hours ago. So
deja vu.
he's probably gonna be an LP in the fund, but
Yeah.
I told him because he was talking about like he works in the energy space, and I said
Hmm.
what do you think? Is there a physical wall in compute right now? He's like,
Yeah.
absolutely there is. There's been a physical wall forever. I mean, you always hear in the
Yeah.
news now. It's like, well, we can't put a data center there. Where
Yeah.
are we going to put a data center? Let's try the ocean, right?
Yeah.
Let's try. Oh, Elon
Yeah.
can get us to Mars. We'll put a
Yeah.
data center there. So you're already seeing this. Like, we can't support our grid. There's not
Yeah.
enough energy on the grid. So it's kind of ridiculous at this point. But we're at this physical wall of compute. Everybody
Yeah.
knows it, whether they want to realize it or not. It's already here. So, what that means is this quantum tunneling is
Yeah.
what you're hearing. So it's really this physical energy barrier. So it's macro level system bottleneck. So it's a classical infrastructure wall where
Hmm.
traditional compute zeros and ones just takes way too much energy, and that's why we're having to build so many
Yeah.
data centers. What
Yeah.
we think will drive adoption and is driving adoption is, to my previous point earlier about PQC, QKD, cryptography, security
Hmm.
around our financial center. The other reason why it's going to adopt quickly is because of energy.
Hmm.
Have to adopt to our energy adoption curve,
Yeah.
and we have to punch through that. Whether it's yesterday or whether it's next year, we think quantum tunneling is going to drive that forward. And the reason why that is because when you think about quantum mechanics, not to get too technical, but it's you have entanglement, right? You have dynamics around quantum computing where it's not just zeros and ones. It's always alternating in that space, right? So so you have a much more efficient quantum compute architecture, and you use a tremendously less amount of power. So you're really solving two problems right there.
Yeah.
So that's where I think you're going to start to see another reason why the adoption curve is happening now, because to punch through these traditional physical barriers is driving several breakthroughs. One, next gen photovoltaics. That's one where you have these solar cells utilize tunneling transport. Another one is ambient energy harvesting. So this is actually a term I just learned, nonlinear effect, or that's what it is. So, but it's a macro challenge though. I mean, it's something it's a thermal and material wall. I think the path forward is really going to be to accelerate adoption past physical limitations through modern research, focuses on room temperature, which I mentioned the architecture earlier. And I think that neutral atom will lead that. But they don't require the massive cryogenic cooling temperature. So I think you're going to see that. That's where we're investing in. But they eliminate the need for extreme thermal barriers. So quantum energy devices can move closer to seamless integration with existing technologies. So I think, that solves a lot of problems on our grid, on our architecture, and our power issues, because the physical, we have to punch through that. We have to punch through. We just don't have enough energy, because I don't know if it's any worse, but it used to be like a 98-2 ratio where you had like 98% demand and 2% capacity, where if you built a data center, it didn't matter if it was like a hyperscaler or edge, but you'd have, as soon as the data center was built, the servers and racks were in the first hour, because we got to get energy somewhere. I don't know where it is, but we got to get energy somewhere. So it's that can't continue. It just can't. Yeah. So I think that's where you're going to start to see, companies that, like I said before, like one of our portcos I'll mention again for your listeners is Sigaldry Technology. They're literally a company that is developing quantum accelerated AI servers. So that is going exactly where I said about breaking that physical wall of traditional compute. So, we're already ahead of the game there. So
for sure.
That answers your question, so.
No, you did. I mean, we see it firsthand. We have a portfolio company that focuses on kind of behind the meter power generation assets and supplying these power. So we're seeing like the massive event, whether it's on air drive, whether it's in reciprocating engine, but it's kind of like providing that power where it's needed. But Craig, I can talk to you forever. Like, it's been super interesting conversation for me.
Great.
So I really appreciate you coming on the pod and sharing your insights on quantum and what Qubits is investing in.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to talk to you further if you want to have another podcast or whatever. But we're love to talk to your listeners about Qubits if that's of interest to you. But it's a great time to be in the space. Hopefully, I answered some of your questions that was clear and concise and understandable. But I just wanted to share my insights on why the government invested in what they invested in, cryptography, security, energy, some of the architectures, and just some of our thoughts on qubits and some of our portcos. So it's a great time to be in the space, and welcome any outreach. If you want to reach out to me, I'm always available. So
absolutely. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Maxim.